All right. Um, all right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Summoning Hour. This week I have Mike Piper, xpR, from as an admin from CollegiateR6. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I can't complain. It's a nice, easy Sunday morning, so nice and easy for me. How about you?
Yeah, it's a pretty nice day here in Miami too. So,
Oh, Miami, that sounds like heaven right now. So, why don't we kick off with your origin story about how you got started with Collegiate R6, and then we can work backwards as to how you got into gaming.
sure. Yeah. So essentially, in 2018, me and Saren actually congregated together. We played a lot of Rainbow Six in the past. I'm actually fairly new to the game. Um, but we noticed that there was a lack of support for the collegiate scene, and we previously had backgrounds doing the Collegiate Battlegrounds Association, which is the Collegiate PUBG League, and that's all for North America. Um, so we realized that there's a scene here that's undeveloped, and we actually love supporting these scenes. It's a lot of fun getting to know the kids, getting to know the teams, and especially branching out and meeting a lot of different people all throughout the country and even throughout Canada. Um, so yeah, we took initiative. We started CR6 probably back in around April 2018, and we've been working tirelessly since. We've upgraded our staff like uh, pretty tenfold. Um, we actually when we first started out, there was a few different people that actually had the same ideas, different areas, I guess per se. Sam Morris, the production director for us, he was actually in process with a few of the Colorado Boulder guys to try to organize a little bit of a tournament as well for Rainbow Six. And after we realized that our goals and our visions kind of aligned together, we combined and joined forces, and Sam took over the production for CR6. And ever since then, we've been actually just a full service tournament platform. We've grown to over, I guess, I think it's like 2,200 players now, and 155, maybe 162, I can't remember. 162 universities. In season one, we started with maybe 100 total universities and 1,200 kids. So it's really awesome to see that Rainbow Six is actually still generating a lot of interest, and it's actually growing. And it's one of those reasons why we wanted to get into this scene.
Yeah, I mean, from the other side of like looking at Rainbow Six as a professional esport, like the fact that it released when it did and it didn't like generate any real buzz for a couple of years, and then they just nailed the updates and really started creating something for people to wrap their heads around. The professional esport has grown, and it's nice to see that the collegiate scene is also picking that up, and that there's just that much interest in it, and that all these students are also getting behind the pro league too. So it's nice to see this as a path of almost as a path to pro. I mean, we saw eCentral Gaming go from caster to analyst now. Now it's just a matter of time, I believe, until we see some of the players from the universities getting picked up by the professional teams, like once they're done with school, or if there's a way that they can be as like a sub.
Yeah, I mean, so it's actually funny you mentioned that. Like, yeah, like Essential going from caster to Dark Zero analyst is crazy. Kid, I can't speak better of that kid. He's a hard worker, always been dedicated. Really knows his stuff. And I can easily see the advantage that Dark Zero has when they picked him up. There's quite a few players in the league that actually are contention for pro league spots. And Challenger League spots. We actually have one player that actually competed in Challenger League last semester. So that was actually really cool seeing an actual collegiate player in that tournament and actually being part of the Rainbow Six Pro scene, which is interesting. And then we got obviously I'm not sure if you saw the All-Star matches in the past weekend.
No, I didn't get to watch the All-Star ones.
It was really cool though. The a bunch of the pros from the current pro scene actually came and decided to volunteer some of their time and do a friendly scrimmage against the top players in CR6, and that was really cool for the community to see, and that was actually awesome in terms of like I guess cross marketing between the two. And I think you mentioned that like actually getting the college kids involved in the pro scene is so important for the growth of the game, and like I think that what we're doing here is actually is going to help that pro scene uh, indefinitely for as long as we go on. So
I think that's right because I mean, otherwise Riot wouldn't be investing so much into a collegiate league. And I see that collegiate isn't necessarily the path to pro, but I definitely see it being one of the paths to pro. And between like League of Legends and um, Overwatch doing collegiate stuff the last couple years and those kind of being more in the limelight of that progression, having CR6 with so many universities and so many students, it's just a matter of time before Ubisoft, I think, really gets involved, and they might even kind of treat you all like the TESPA of Rainbow Six, which, hey, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And if it's a way of growing the professional scene as well, that you're just going to have even more students involved to begin with. So, I mean, I think you guys position yourself in a really good position and a really good spot in terms of timing as well to really ride that wave of growing popularity.
yeah, for sure. And like that's like one of our end goals is we really want to be able to create this dynamic relationship with Ubisoft and and really I guess support each other and grow the scene together. Um, we do what do you call it? We do have like very very high hopes for the future, and I think that um like you said, it's only a matter of time before um Ubisoft and I guess like honestly it's not even just with Ubisoft, right? I mean like you think like all these games are starting to probably see that college esports is a viable um not only path to pro, but I wouldn't say it's the path to pro, but um it's a viable option to generate interest and buzz around your game for a community that actually like follows it. Like looking at like Rocket League and Collegiate Rocket League, that thing took off massively. You mentioned how Riot just made the new committee for um for their esports program for college, which is crazy. Excuse me, crazy. Given the fact that the NCAA hasn't jumped in on the opportunity yet, so I think we'll see a lot more game publishers for that regard take that initiative on their own. It would make more sense, I think. They profit more. They have access to a base pretty much immediately. Um, but yeah, I think CR6 is well positioned for that. We're ready for those next steps. Um, we definitely look forward to seeing how that transition will occur.
So talking about CR6 and going forward, you had that smaller season. I mean, at the very beginning in the fall, you mentioned 100 universities roughly and about 1,200 students back then, and then you grew, you almost doubled in terms of universities, and you also in terms of students as well. How did you manage that amount of growth between seasons? Because I mean, season one or the fall season ended in like late November, early December, and then you were kicking the spring season off in February, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
And so you had a month, maybe a month and a half, if you include if you discount the holidays, to actually manage the production shift, and then organizing that many students, that many teams, and just figuring out how you're going to do the open and as well as the main leagues. Like, what was that transition like? What was that month and a half like?
That month was rough, to say the least. The team was working tirelessly. Every member of the staff was good, like pretty much online, 8 hours a day, drumming out specifics of the season. Um, we were really really hyped to start that season and start it into these different tiered leagues and whatnot. We have a lot of talented people that manage the back end of the websites and stuff that we're actually able to create a few systems where we can make the sign up process incredibly easy. It's like a six field sign up process, does the verification for your school and your enrollment like automatically. Um, these are all like the majority of the staff on CollegiateR6 are actually college students that are usually focused in their area. So if they're trying to do marketing or trying to do business, we position them in spots within our team that would best appropriate that, so they can get the experience going into hopefully real life and then real jobs that they go into. Um, but yeah, I think like in terms of the growth, uh, it was a lot of grassroots marketing. In the past, I mentioned earlier, me and Saren, and actually a lot of the other staff members came over from Collegiate PUBG to found Collegiate R6, and we actually had a base of around 115 universities through that. So we were able to use that and kind of market side by side with that, so we could get like initial growth. But then the extra growth is a lot of like the kids just spreading around the message, the hype being generated on Twitter, seeing a few things on Twitch and whatnot. I think when people actually start to realize that this is a thing, they're like, "Oh God, I gotta get my friends. We could play in this tournament, and it'd be a lot of fun." And yeah, I mean, I think like that's like the main ways that we drummed all that up. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but definitely worth it in the long run for sure.
And one thing I noticed later in the season, I think it was actually during the last few weeks of the playoffs, was that you had help or a partner with Space Productions. How
So
were they actually behind the scenes during the whole season, or did they just kind of come in and kind of try and help smooth things out towards the end?
so Space Productions is actually a company that is ran by Sam Morris, who's our production lead. He recently founded it in March, but it's basically before like the our production studio was based in the University of Utah for I want to say about the greater half of 6 months. Um, and basically they realized that they're actually pretty good at production, so they jumped on board and they decided to found an organization together and hopefully look for some like additional gigs on the side and get some and get an actual production company going. I'm looking more along the lines of like Beyond the Summit style things like that. Those guys are trying to compete with that, and the job they've done with CR6 and uh, will continue to do in the future is unparalleled, and I think they have a um, great I guess like a great path ahead of them. They have all the experience they need. But yeah, that's their we added them as a partner to essentially get more interest for their brand, and can't thank them enough for what they've done for us in the past for sure.
And so, what's that partnership like? I mean, they have a very business-oriented mindset, but with the college space where you're also just you're going to have to deal with the churn of students being interested or not interested, burnout, just oh, I can't do this because of finals, or for people who are trying to practice some of their major where they're in it, but they can only manage so much. What's that relationship like of like how much you can carry on CR6 sides and how much Space Productions is really going to be able to carry some of the weight.
So those actually Space Productions is pretty much mostly graduated. They're all like actually in their respective fields now, but production is actually their forte. It's basically a job for Sam and a bunch of the others. They've been doing a lot of expos and whatnot um already. But in terms of the CR6 side, we basically the divide of labor is that the show goes on with Space Productions. They take care of the production, the observing. We kind of like commingle with the talent and stuff and the casters. But the observing, the actual transitions, slides, everything like that is handled by Space. And on our side, we run a tournament. We make sure that the players and the rosters are correct. We organize the season, deal with disputes. Um, but it's a pretty fair trade in reality. I think that we have like a certainly capable staff to handle both sides. Um, But yeah, it's not actually as stressful as it would appear. But yeah, I can see why you brought that up.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that division of labor clearly understood and each party executing however they need to, what did you learn from this spring season? That, I mean, obviously there was a whole lot more changes. You had a different student schedule to deal with. What's that next level of CR6 look like from your point of view?
So I think we have, and this has been a discussion privately amongst staff members. I think that in reality we have a core group of teams. Think around probably 32 that are very very capable of playing near the next level in terms of like potentially going to more higher amateur leagues and stuff like that, or like actual tournaments and things that are not just collegiate in nature. Um, so we want to create potentially a more elite environment um, for them within our collegiate space. So we're looking at doing something like that, and then we're also exploring a lot of other options, such as maintaining the current season format with a few little twists. But the next level is obviously full-blown scholarships is what we want to get to. We want to support our students in a way similar to what TESPA does, without getting into too much detail. But
Sure, yeah. Can't let all the cats out of the bag, but I mean that seems like the next logical step. I mean, with so much interest and just more growth opportunity, I think you'd mentioned in one of the discords that you had even more interest already in that next season than you had in the spring season.
yeah, we're looking already at like potentially having up to 175 schools, which is pretty nuts. And so that like we'll have to figure out a correct system to deal with the influx of teams. We don't want to leave anybody out because the scene needs to grow, and we need to be the ones to foster that. And there's got to be a good solution that we have in place for that. And we're working on that right now. That's kind of like our plan for next season is going to probably begin um, basically this week, I'd say. But we're actually using our summer season to test out a lot of the changes going forward into that fall season, so that we can kind of iron out any mistakes in the rule set, the format, and things like that, so that we can avoid those problems that may arise.
And speaking of summer, can you elaborate on what the summer season is going to be like? Because I haven't been able to track down too many details, but I think it'd be interesting to know how you're shifting things around during the summer and what things you're taking into consideration while you've been planning this. Just because, I mean, student availability, I imagine, is going to go down. The level of commitment is probably going to go
Of course.
down.
Yeah, so basically we're only doing like a 6 week scrim series essentially. It's we announced it yesterday, so that's probably why you haven't heard much about it. Um, essentially it's a 6 week season. Teams are allowed to combine with other teams, so it's actually cross collegiate. It's more of like again, we're trying to figure out how we can adapt that rule set and the changes. We recently started an initiative called the CR6 Competitive Committee, which allows certain players of the community and in the league to essentially vote on important matters that they believe should be fixed and addressed within the league. Kind of like a players' council, if you will, or a players' union. Um, and it's basically our way of getting the community's voice and putting that voice into action, and actually making positive change in the league in a together sense. Um, so the summer season will revolve around feedback from that CR6 competitive committee, as well as the players participating in that 6 week summer scrim season. Um, and we're trying to cap that at I believe 64 teams. I'm not sure, but that
Yeah,
will be run Swiss, not like not like an actual set schedule, like we did in the spring.
yeah, that definitely sounds like the better approach to take just for the summer and the scheduling considerations for that, and as well as just availability. Because I mean, with 2,400 students roughly, or 2,200 students in this last season, I could imagine that at least half of them are going on vacation. They're like, I just did 12 weeks of CR6. I
Yeah.
need to scrub my brain a little bit.
Yeah, you could imagine that I mean I would even assume to the point where like these kids are getting into internships, they're getting into jobs. Um, you know, these kids I'm surprised they even had time during college to play all these games, but then I remember back when I was in college, I played a ton of games too, so
Yeah, the amount of screwing around I did with WoW while I was in college, like, I don't know how I passed most of my classes.
yeah, I feel that too spiritually, honestly.
So, one thing that I asked this question to East Central when I interviewed him, and we were both like, we have no idea how you guys manage this, but with all these schools on different schedules that are kind of sort of similar, and yet they can vary wildly between like holidays, when finals are, when their school season or their school year ends, or when graduations are. How in the world did you as an organization manage to keep all these schools in line within a season format? Because I mean, even just spring break, I remember having to have that extension brought out so that people can play their matches, and then having to do like, this is the last call. If you don't have your game recorded, it's a forfeit for both teams. Like, how in the world did you manage that?
So it's like in the beginning of the season, we lay out the schedule all in advance. So all these teams actually had their entire schedule since day one. They knew exactly who they were playing each week and whatnot. Um, the biggest thing about that is that we do a no tolerance policy really for not playing a match during a week. And there's actually some punitive actions that could happen if you don't. Because we want our teams to participate. We want the most participative teams to be the ones playing. Um, and The way we typically go about doing things is we organize those schedules based around players' regions and their time zones. Um, and then we have this default date set on Friday. So like basically, if neither team comes to an agreement for when they want to play during a week, they play on the Friday at a set time, and there's no way to dispute it. And whatever team shows up is the one that will get the win if there was a forfeit. But we discourage forfeiting. We discourage like those events to happen. So we do obviously make some leniency policies on the spot um, to accommodate those teams that are struggling to figure out a day to play, and obviously the things like finals and other things. And the end of the school year, kids going back home. We have to make some last second arrangements. In order to get those games to be played. Like Texas A&M, the runner-up, they had some issues because of finals and also going back home and whatnot from school in the same exact week as the semis. And basically, we had to make an adjustment because we didn't want a team as good, especially and one that's been participating the entire season very actively and big strong members of the community to forfeit in the semifinals. So it's more of like if it's within reason, we're able to make adjustments on the fly, and we'll definitely accommodate the student schedules ahead of like our own schedule. And if we're able to make adjustments like that, our production can meet that. Everything works out in the long run for us anyway. So
It sounds like the best of both worlds, with highly structured and yet being flexible in those crazy moments.
yeah, I mean I think like the biggest thing for college kids is that flexible schedule. I think giving kids a time every single week that they have to play twice a week would probably would not work that well. Giving them the opportunities to actually schedule their games in advance on their own, as long as it's during a week time. Um, most of these games take 2 hours. If you want to divide up the maps, play 1 hour one day and 1 hour the other day, then that's up to you. But like making it as easy as possible for them to accommodate within their sometimes like crazy schedules that are like probably in between 12 to 18 credit hours a week. Um, anything to make that process easier is better for us too. So
That definitely makes it a lot easier to, a lot more of a clear picture to understand how everything was managed on the back end. It's like, well, you had this time to figure it out. How many of those teams did you actually have to be like, we gave you all of your opponents way ahead of time, all the dates and times and the ranges of those weeks, and that you just ended up having to show them a little tough love just to be like, this is on you.
personally, I think I did that to about two or three teams. I think in total our staff maybe did it to like four or five. For the most part, the league has been incredibly dedicated this semester, and that's actually awesome. Made our jobs a lot easier. But at the same time, like there are a few teams that do have repeat issues. And we don't encourage them to continuously have the problems, but we do work with them to make sure that we can figure out a solution that works best for them.
Yeah, and I mean that's about what I expected. One thing I've found with pretty much all of collegiate esports is that anyone who's involved either on the administration side or as a player on one of the teams, they are just immensely dedicated. Like so much so that some of these schools are like setting specific hours in which a team can practice. So I to hear that you only had like two or three or four schools or teams that were having problems, repeat problems like that just kind of makes sense, and it falls in line with everything that I've seen about CR6 and the teams involved, that they just seem all in on it and that they really just want this to be as good as possible. And the fact that you've created such a community that the professionals are coming in on streams, like I've seen Lycan come in a few times, and it's like that is community building at its best when you have people coming down or coming back to basically what roots there would be or what roots are being established for other people to be involved in that community. Like that's just such a big deal at how good of a job that CR6 is promoting college and community.
I really appreciate those words. Like, yeah, I think what the pro scene and a lot of those guys are doing for us is it's almost unfathomable. Like the support that we get just off of that is pretty unreal. And then like the players that are going to be potentially at that level, hopefully that they remember those roots as well and come back, stay high once in a while and you know, don't leave us out. But nah, I really do appreciate what the pro scene does for us and how they interact with community, and I think that's like the coolest thing ever. I remember when I was younger and I used to go to the football practices for New England Patriots, and I would used to. I still remember to this day shaking Tom Brady's hand. Like, I was like 8 years old, but it's maybe not eight. Oh God, I don't even know. But I was a lot younger than now. But just those things like the little interactions between the professional players and and the community is huge. It does leave a lasting mark and definitely leaves a lasting impression for those that are just wandering in. So
Yeah. And I mean that right there where you can have that professional crossover is only going to get even more strong as CR6 starts moving into space like organizing a LAN for the grand finals at like one university or another and having to like, because I mean if space productions and a lot of the people on CR6 are based out of Utah or can make a trip to Utah, it seems like a great place to set up at the University of Utah because if I recall correctly, they're a pretty big organization esports wise anyways, so it's good for that college, it's good for CR6, it's good for space productions, and then having like Space Station Gaming being right there as well. If you can invite them out, invite some of the other like Dark Zero out and have a LAN set up for grand finals, like that's a marketing machine right there.
yeah, of course, and I think that's definitely something on our radar. We wanna definitely encourage that possibility. especially given the fact that like how you mentioned how space productions and space station gaming are right there next to each other. We actually had Rampy thinking Naden Lycan actually participate in that all-star match versus our teams, so that was actually really really cool to see those space station guys come out and actually compete against them.
Did you get to hear much of the reaction about how the professional players were thinking about the collegiate players they were up against?
No, I heard a few of it. I heard that they were surprised by one guy on our team, Spandy. They were really pleasantly surprised at how good he was for being a college player. But besides that, I haven't heard much buzz. I'm sure there's definitely things that go around. I don't hear everything anymore.
Fair enough. Once you get so busy and so high up, it's just like, nope, gotta let that go.
Yeah, I mean it's just there's a lot of things that are going on right now that we gotta iron out. I think there's a lot of work to be done for next season. I think that we can definitely take those next steps and actually get huge and get big off of this and I really want to drum it home and basically just nail this community down to a T and make it so it basically runs itself. I think that would be the ideal move.
Yeah, that would be great if the teams and the players themselves can get to that level of commitment where that's just or where even the schools recognize that this is now becoming like an actual scheduled sport that has legitimacy, that's good for the students, that's good for the university, that if they were able to help make sure that that schedule is kind of ironed out for everyone and that there's that extra level of authenticity and acknowledgement. That way you can work with the universities and the universities can all work together with you to make that schedule and understanding more fit all of the school systems a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly where we want to go. I think that's like you hit the nail right in the head. Like we want to make it so that it's easy for these schools. We want to make it so it's appealing for the actual universities to jump on board with it.
Have you had much interaction with university administration or clubs that are trying to become established so that they could be involved with CR6?
We've had actually a few ask about it, and they want to know the next steps, and that's actually very recent. Basically, kind of similar questions that you've been asking me. They want to see where they think that this can go in the future, and also like how we plan on supporting those schools and those students um, going forward is the biggest thing. And I think like we'll definitely be working our tail off in the summer to make it so that those demands and uh I guess those needs in order to support this scene are met. And I think that's all we can do at the moment, but I think it's gonna be a crazy season coming up and definitely gonna be bigger and better than before. So yeah.
I'm really looking forward to next season. Since I joined the R6 community back in October, it's been my go-to game and something that I've been really interested in learning and trying to be a part of that community. And CR6 has given me that insight into part of the community that I've really been able to latch onto since Heroes of the Dorm was taken out from underneath me and just I needed
RIP.
RIP, exactly. I needed a collegiate esport to follow, and R6's rapid growth is just like, oh, this is interesting. This I want to know what's going on here, and I haven't looked back at this point. So thank you so much for organizing CR6. And I know you've got your plate full just trying to iterate on North American colleges and set up with even some Canadian colleges as well. Has there been any consideration about when you jump across the pond and try and interact with the UK and European based colleges?
So we thought about that. I've done a little bit of market research on that. There's actually so the UK actually has something kind of similar to what we have. It's a lot smaller. It's a lot more. I guess there's like I think there's around 14 schools with them. But they're all super close. Obviously, the UK you can drive a car across the country. Um, and you could play with any of them in person and have LANs, and that's like a huge advantage that they have in terms of organizing a an R6 tournament. Um, but there are a few little bumps like that, little leagues that we'd love to help and get involved with and potentially grow this to be international. I know Brazil has a huge college scene for R6 of around 80 teams, 90 teams.
I hadn't heard that. That's really interesting. I knew Brazil was kind of an up and comer with a lot of esports, and they're really starting to get into like the LAN centers and being able to play at a competitive level. But I know that the southern regions typically kind of get, or like the Latin America regions, they typically don't get a lot of limelight. Just I'm not sure if it's because there's no star power, if they're not like super strong regions, but Brazil has been an up and comer with like CS:GO, a lot of the FGC, and even League of Legends. It seems like they're doing a lot better internationally than they had been. So I guess I'm not too surprised to hear Rainbow Six is big down there, but to have 80 universities for R6 playing, like that's pretty substantial, isn't it?
Yeah, I would definitely. It's definitely one of those things where, like, when I first saw it, I was like, I need to go back and just take a second look. I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly because I'm not Spanish. I don't read Spanish really that well, but I'm trying to read the Portuguese on the site and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this is actually 80 universities. Yeah, it's definitely substantial. Basically what we had when we had our first season, and I think this is their second season. And like it's probably a lot harder to coordinate something within Brazil than it is in the United States for gaming. So props to them for sure.
Well, there's a definite another place to reach out to, and man, if you can get that UK scene going, you got the South American scene going, and you got NA going already, you can have some impressive show matches, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure, and that will be definitely something on our radar as well as trying to coordinate with these other leagues and growing the scene together. I think like R6 can benefit as a whole if we all work together rather than work apart. Especially given the fact that the game is like it's just starting to have that boom again. I know you mentioned earlier that like when it first came out, it was like I don't know the buzz and the hype just wasn't there. I remember installing the beta and I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah,
But here I am a few years later, right?
right, exactly. And thinking about a few years farther, what's in it for you? Where are you going? I mean, obviously CR6 is going to perpetuate on for the next few years, or as long as that there is support for it. But where do you want to be after
uh,
CR6, or if you see yourself moving on?
Currently, I do CR6 as pretty much. I mean, I guess it's actually like technically two full-time jobs at this point. But so by day I'm an architect, and by night I'm CR6. Um, but I do really enjoy esports, and for a long time, like it's been one of those questions on my mind is whether or not I want to pursue esports as a full-time career going forward. Um, and it's definitely something I'll be thinking about during the summer and the winter going forward. Um, but yeah, it's actually a good question because I don't even know at this point. I want to say I will be getting involved in esports, but I'm not sure yet because it's a little bit of a bumpy road at the moment. But if there's any way to make it more stable, that would be obviously the more ideal path for me.
Yeah, I can imagine what you would be giving up as an architect to pursue something that's like it can collapse at any moment.
Yeah, I mean that's the just the shakiness of it and the uncertainty of the job is what turns me down from it. But at the same time, it's something that I do love and I really do enjoy, and I think that's what's most important, right? I think it's definitely something that I'll be having to consider in the short term future for sure.
And I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, everything I'm doing with the podcast, my own social media, trying to be involved with the Collegiate Esports Network and with CR6, it's all on the after the 9 to 5 and squeezing in wherever I can help out. And so, I mean, making that jump from 9 to 5 to this thing that's on the side that may or may not take off, or I may or may have to be at it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years longer before I can see something from it. Like that makes that journey look all the more difficult. But I mean, we both do what we do just because we love these communities, and like esports is just where our hearts are, I guess, I suppose. But uh, yeah, I mean, it's what we do because it's what we choose to do and because we love it.
Yeah, and like that's what I'm guessing we're both thinking about right now is like basically like do we pursue that? Do we figure that out? But yeah, I mean for now I'll take it day by day. Love basically love the communities, love the game. Uh really enjoy getting to know everybody and working with some really talented and amazing people. I've met a lot of really good friends through this that I probably would have never met if I didn't do this before. So that's uh that's enough winning for me right there.
There you go. Well, why don't you take some time to do some shout outs for your crew or in Space Productions or whoever else you want to uh, give some love to, and we can call this a wrap.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, thank you. Also, thank you so much for having me on. Your coverage throughout the entire season and stuff like that has been phenomenal. I definitely want to help grow this podcast and things like that. I think what you guys are doing here, especially as well as through the actual network, is pretty substantial. Another place where basically the market didn't exist until you guys hopped on and like it was really awesome how CESN actually brought you on and your podcast to basically make you the official one for them. And that's sick. So
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for doing this. I know it's midday on a Sunday for you and you've got other plans going on, but I appreciate you taking some time and making sure that this got done. So thank you so much.
no, absolutely. I couldn't turn it down for sure. But yeah, I mean like in terms of shout outs for the crew and stuff, definitely big shout out to Space Productions. They do a phenomenal job. Anybody that's actually looking for any production needs or anything like that should definitely hit them up. They'll work with you. They come up with a budget that fits your needs and your schedule. Um, I definitely recommend them. Really approachable people. Our tournament staff, as well as our casters, like really phenomenal job, guys. In particular, Swindle has done a phenomenal job this season. Um, I think that honestly, like our casters, uh, I7, Demonic, Jazzman, Matt, Mister. I mean, we have so many casters. I can't even name them all, but like they all did phenomenal this season. Really left it all on the floor, and that's all we could ask for. And like these kids are making time out of their busy days and their schedules to actually go forward and do this, and uh, I'm incredibly grateful for basically everything that they've done. But
That
yeah,
Great. I mean that's all you can put out there. I mean, you just thanked about 2,200 students, so I think that's pretty big for a shout out. All right. Well, thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate it. And this podcast is done, man. Thanks again.
yeah, appreciate it. Definitely again for having me on. Like super fun. Definitely don't get many opportunities to do this. I'd love to do it more often. So yeah, I mean, like, let me know if you ever wanna have a nice little chat again.
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you know more details about what's going forward with CR6, feel free to either just shoot me a voicemail, voice message, or just ask if you can come on the podcast again. I am happy to have you and CR6 or any other members of CR6 on as well. So, I mean, the door is always open. Let's build this thing up.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely. I'm gonna give you some private info probably next week. That I'm not sure if you could share just yet, but we'll be in touch for sure going forward with that.
Perfect.
And I yeah, I actually gotta get going.
Yep.
right now.
I
But
think we timed that pretty well. So
yeah,
you get
perfect.
out, do your plans, and we'll stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. And especially all the shout outs that you let me do. And thank you for actually helping me reach the community a little bit more.
Of course. So yeah, take it easy, and
Take it
everyone
easy. We'll be
watching
in
on stream.
touch for
Yep,
sure.
perfect. Take it easy, man. Everyone on stream, thanks for coming out and watching, or if you're listening to the podcast, thank you for listening. Later, taters.